The Comanche, known as the Lords of the Plains, once roamed freely across vast territories, mastering the art of survival in an unforgiving landscape. In the heart of the North American plains lies a story of resilience, strength, and cultural richness. Welcome to our journey into the world of the Comanche Tribe. From the windswept plains of Texas to the rugged terrain of Colorado, the Comanche forged a rich and vibrant culture, shaped by their deep connection to the natural world. Renowned as skilled horsemen and fierce warriors, the Comanches were the undisputed masters of the Great Plains, their very presence striking awe into the hearts of their enemies. Join us as we journey deeper into the heart of Comanche country, where the echoes of the past reverberate through the ages, reminding us of a time when the world was young, and the spirits of the land danced with the people. So let's uncover the untold stories and enduring legacy of the Comanche tribe. The Spanish had stepped back in their northward expansion at one point in American history. At the same time, the French ceased their westward expansion from Louisiana. The Comanches were the main cause of this. The United States government had to wait 40 years to develop Texas and other plain states because of them. The Comanches were originally part of the Shoshone tribe, speaking the same language and lived as hunters and gatherers in the Great Basin region of the western United States. The Comanches brought horses into their society at some point in the late 17th century, and this caused significant cultural changes. The life of the tribe was revolutionized, as they rapidly evolved into a mounted, well-equipped and powerful people. They could now travel across the plains of eastern Colorado and western Kansas, leaving behind their mountain home and their Shoshone neighbors. The Comanches started migrating southward after they arrived on the Great Plains. They discovered a warmer climate, plenty of buffalo and Mustang horses, and a great environment there. They traded with the French during their migration, mainly for weapons and ammunition. They also traded with Wichita tribe on the Red River. They also faced pressure from more powerful tribes to the northeast, like the Blackfoot and the Crow. Comanche country, also known as Comancheria, quickly expanded across a significant portion of the South Plains, including most of North, Central, and West Texas. The tribe did not become known as Comanches until they arrived on the southern plains. The name Comanches is derived from a Ute word meaning enemy, literally meaning anybody who wants to battle me all the time. Despite their original name, Namana, the tribe became historically known as the Comanches. The Comanches were divided up into separate bands. Bands were made of families. The buffalo was an important animal for the Comanches. It was utilized not just to provide food, but also for clothes and shelter. However, the horse defined the Comanche way of life. They were able to hunt and fight from horseback, and it also allowed them to follow the buffalo herds with greater mobility. Since the Comanche were well-known traders, horses also came to be seen as a sign of their prosperity and a valued item. The Comanche had no competitors in horsemanship, and from a young age they used to gain riding skills. Both men and women improved their riding abilities significantly. The Comanche political structure was strongly associated with democratic principles. There were war chiefs and civil or peace leaders in every tribe. However, the head civil chief had the most power historically. Band members voted for the leaders, and those leaders were elected by majority. When the Comanches first arrived in Texas in the early 1700s, they fought with the South Plains native tribes, especially the Apaches. The battle was won by the Comanches, who forced the Apaches to move south. A Spanish mission was assaulted in 1758 by a group of about 2,000 Comanches and allied tribal members. That was built on the San Salvador River for the Apaches. The mission was raided and burned, and 8 people, including 2 priests, were murdered. A year later, a Spanish expedition commanded by Colonel Diego Ortiz Barria was defeated by the Comanches and their allies in a day-long battle on the Red River near present Spanish Fort. Because the Spanish were not able to vanquish the Comanches, they gave them agreements of peace for the following few decades. Certain treaties were upheld while others were not because the Apaches remained a danger. When the Spanish authorities went to Comancheria in 1785, they offered presents and made pledges of peace that persisted until the end of the 18th century. Officials failed to provide promised gifts and trade products, and Comanche hostilities resumed. Comanches invaded far into Spanish territory, capturing horses and things to sell to traders when they entered Texas from the United States. At the time, it was believed that tribes had a population of 20,000 to 40,000 people. These Americans supplied the Comanches with trade items, such as rifles and ammunition, and created a booming market for Comanche horses. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain, although the change in administration had minimal influence in Comancheria. Mexican rulers started to encourage Shawnees, Cherokees, and other tribes to make war against the Comanches. The Mexican colonial laws of 1824 permitted foreign immigration to Texas, and American settlers flocked into the province. The friendly relationship that had formed through mutually beneficial commerce swiftly deteriorated. When newly arriving settlers began taking area that Comanches regarded traditional hunting grounds, and the two became adversaries. When Texas gained independence from Mexico in 1836, the Comanches and their allies still had complete control of the Texas plains. They routinely raided border communities. During one of the attacks, they kidnapped a 9-year-old girl who would eventually join the clan. It would eventually be revealed that she was the mother of Quannaparker, the famed last Comanche chief. Sam Houston, the first elected president of the Republic of Texas, suggested a peace strategy. The Texas Congress declined to accede to the one Comanche demand for peace, a border between Texas and Comancheria, hence the idea was rejected. Mirabal Bilamar, who replaced Houston as president, rejected peace with the Indians and advocated war against the Comanches. This culminated in the Council House conflict, a terrible occurrence that happened in San Antonio in the spring of 1840, when Texas officials sought to arrest a Comanche peace mission. A shooting broke out, and 35 Comanches, including 12 chiefs, were murdered. The remaining 30 Comanches, mostly women and children, were imprisoned by the Texans. 7 Texans were also killed in the clash, with 8 injured. A few months later, the Comanches responded with a reprisal raid. About 500 warriors commanded by Buffalo Hump swept across South Texas, destroying the towns of Victoria and Linville, murdering 25 Texans and looting and burning settlements. While returning north, they were stopped at Plum Creek and fought by Texan soldiers. The Texas Rangers defeated the Comanches. They sustained 11 losses, while the number of locals slain is unknown. However, Rangers reported collecting 12 bodies. In October, Texan soldiers destroyed a Comanche camp near present-day Colorado City. The Comanches relocated beyond the Red River, therefore the Texans were successful in driving them beyond Texas boundaries, but at a tremendous cost to both sides. Despite Sam Houston's second time as president in 1841 and his efforts to re-establish his peace plan, but no peace was reached. This was brought into the Union in 1845, and the United States government took over control of Texas Indian affairs. In order to safeguard both settlers and Indians, 2 reservations were constructed. In 1854, 350 Comanches were moved to reserves in Texas after their band had been weakened by conflict, epidemic illnesses, and buffalo herd reduction. Trade surged while the Civil War left the frontier unguarded. But once the war was over, the federal government re-established border defenses and started treaty negotiations with the Plains tribes. The treaties were intended to open the territory to colonization by forcing nomadic tribes on reserves. The 1867 Treaty of Medicine Lodge Creek, the final treaty struck with the Comanches, created a reserve for the Comanches, Kiowas, and Kiowa Apaches in southwestern Indian Territory between the Washington and Red Rivers. The Comanches, who saw their way of life fading, refused to surrender, so they turned to a young medicine man named White Eagle for leadership. In the spring of 1874, he promised them victory over the whites. Quanah, a war chief, also had significant power over the resisting Comanches. Inspired by the visionary commander, warriors assaulted buffalo hunters at Adobe Walls in Hutchinson County. Comanches, Kiowas, and Cheyennes assaulted the hunters, who were exploiting an abandoned fort to kill buffalo for skins. Although the hunters were significantly outnumbered, the indigenous were vanquished due to the fort's protection. In addition, the hunters employed long-range buffalo rifles. This failure ended the Indians' trust. In the same year that the Army started an unrelenting campaign that came to be known as the Red River War, it also brought retaliation from the U.S. government. An invasion was launched with the goal of pushing all indigenous to the reservation. Soldiers, led by Colonel Ronald S. McKenzie, ambushed the Comanche camp at Palo Duro Canyon, destroying their horse herd. Several of them were killed in the conflicts, but their supplies were destroyed, leaving them unable to spend the winter on the plains and compelled to enter the reservation. Quanah's group held out on the Staked Plains for about a year before surrendering, becoming the final free Comanches to be placed on the reservation. The Comanche population, once thought to be in the tens of thousands, was reduced to 1,600 by 1875. They were moved to the Fort Sill Reservation, where they lived with Kiowas and Apaches. Life on the reservation was different as the government was trying to transform the hunters and warriors to farmers and stockmen. The Comanche traditional values and beliefs were constantly attacked, and they were urged to adopt white man's practices. The reservation period came to an end in 1901 when it was broken up. The Jerome Agreement, made by the U.S. government with the Kiowa, Comanche, and Apache tribes, stated that each man, woman, and kid would get 160 acres of land. The Native Americans agreed to take $2 million in exchange for giving up all of their lands, with the exception of 4 sections that encompassed over 500,000 acres, or 862 square miles, and extra acreage set aside for church, agency, and school usage. Comanche chiefs protested to the allocation of lands on several grounds, but the federal government maintained the agreement. Lands not designated to indigenous were made available to the public, and whites quickly outnumbered natives on the former reservation. As time progressed, many Comanches began to disperse due to economic opportunities. Many left in search of jobs. When World War II broke out, many of them joined the military and worked in the defense sector. The Comanches were one of numerous tribes that assisted to the war effort by utilizing their language as a code. In the 1960s, encouraged by the growth of native nationalism, the Comanches began work together to restore their civilization. As a result of that initiative, they underwent significant political changes, including the formation of their own tribal government, which operates near Lawton in Oklahoma. The Comanche Nation today has approximately 16,000 tribal members, with almost 8,000 living in southwest Oklahoma. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you.